This week on People with Passion for Pets, we talk to Dr. Judy Stolz. Dr. Stolz is a doctor of veterinary medicine and she specializes in homeopathic treatments. Well, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
So, Dr. Stolz, you are a veterinary doctor and you specialize in homeopathic medicine for animals, which I'm so excited to have you on the show. And by the way, welcome to People with Passion for Pets. For our listeners, homeopathic is more about using nature and natural ways to treat. Is that correct?
Correct. So in Western or conventional, which is kind of a misnomer, it's not really conventional, but in what we call conventional medicine, we use antibiotics, anticonvulsants, anti-vomiting, we're trying to cover up that symptom, which, sometimes that's indicated, especially in an emergency situation. But when we have chronic disease, which is pretty much almost everything, when we cover something up, it makes it worse. So with homeopathy, homeo means similar and pathos means the pathology. So we're using something similar in an energetic form to treat that pathology. It's kind of like cures likes. So an example of that is, say you're on an airplane and it's really noisy and you can use those noise canceling headsets. So the noise is at a certain wavelength and the headsets create the opposite wavelength and it cancels it out. That's kind of what homeopathy is, like cures like. Hippocrates, whenever he was the first person that we know of that noticed like cures like. When they had people who had some kind of neurological issue that maybe they couldn't move, they would bury them in sand up to their neck. And so that person would try to move and they couldn't. So when they took them out of the sand, it was helpful. They could actually move.
That's amazing, but that's a really good example, and I've never thought of that. But it's just the nervous system saying, "Hey, you know what? Now I can."
Right. Or a really commonly used remedy is called apis, which is the bee. Apis mellifica is the honeybee. It's a very old remedy, but when you get a bee sting and you have swelling, it's red, it's hot, it's stinging, it's burning. And you can take the energy version of the honeybee, which is called apis. It cancels out those symptoms, the burning, the stinging, that type of thing. So we use homeopathy in acute situations like that, like sprained ankles or bee stings or trauma. Where it really shines even more is with chronic, long-term, chronic disease. That's a whole different situation where we do something called a constitutional remedy, where we look at the whole patient, everything about them, their personality, of course, what their symptoms are, like their seizures, their past ear infections, everything. And that's called constitutional prescribing. We're looking at the whole individual. So we have to find a remedy, a homeopathic remedy that matches that individual. So say, for example, 3 people in one day, this hardly ever happens, but 3 people in one day call and they say their dog is seizuring. They would each get a different homeopathic remedy if I took their case, because their seizures are different, their personalities are different, their characteristics are different, their past histories are all different. So we look at all of that before prescribing that one remedy that fits that whole patient.
And that is so amazing. And I think that's why I'm definitely such a proponent. I love homeopathic medicine for people, but I obviously love it for animals because it is about the individual. Every person is different. And oftentimes, the illness is an indication of something within that person's life. And when it's just here's a medicine for that, that's not really a treatment. That's not really looking at the root cause or,
How did it get there in the first place? Is like
exactly. You have to look at the root of the issue, which, they say that functional medicine does that. Yeah, they do, because they do a lot of lab tests and they're looking really more on a physical level. But in homeopathy, we're looking even on a deeper level, that healing has to occur on an energy level first. It sounds weird to say that, but it's true. We call it the vital force. You have to treat the vital force. That has to be healed first. And then the physical body responds.
If you think about it, when you get a cut, if you do nothing, it will heal itself.
Right.
So basically what you're doing is, if it's a severe cut or something, you're saying,
Mhm.
okay, here's some extra medicine or extra
Right.
herbs that will give
Right.
more healing
Protect
power.
it, yeah.
More,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
Right.
But you're gonna
It-
let the body heal itself.
Right. The cut is still there, but we want to like make the curve a lot faster, the healing faster,
Right.
rather than long drawn out. My first homeopathic case ever was a little dachshund that had been attacked by another dog, just ripped to shreds, like the skin was hanging off. The dog had already been, it had multiple surgeries, skin grafts, been to every internal medicine specialist. It had been on antibiotics for like a year, and it just would not heal. Like this, every time they'd do a skin graft, it just wouldn't heal. And they came to me, and all I did was two things. I gave a homeopathic remedy called calendula, which is marigold. So I gave that in a homeopathic form, but I also gave them like syringes full of calendula juice. It's called calendula succus. And I had them flush out the wound. Like 2 weeks later, they didn't show up, and I called them like, what's going on? Oh, he's completely healed. Like everything
Oh, wow.
held up. That's why we didn't come to the appointment. I was like, oh my gosh, I would have loved for you to come in so I could take a picture of it. This is my first homeopathic case. I wanted to take pictures of it and stuff. So it was just really interesting that, it had been on so many drugs. And
It's so amazing when I talk to people about herbal medicine, how there are, in nature, these just wonderful plants that just have so many things that these days, pharmaceutical medicine just has kind of pushed to the side. But that's really how
Right.
medicine started. If we think about it, that's
Right.
medicine, right? That's how,
Right.
and that's why it's so funny to say traditional medicine, because that is really traditional medicine, right? That's where
Right.
it comes from.
Right. Traditional conventional medicine is Chinese medicine, homeopathy, naturopathy. Naturopathy is using herbs and supplements and nutrition, which is great. It's helpful, but sometimes it's not really deeply curative like homeopathy is. Sometimes they use the analogy of like a great big iceberg, and what you see above the water on the iceberg is the symptoms. And then below the water is like this huge thing that we don't see. And that's the part that's like, you could see eventually, but it's inherited. When it's treated improperly, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. With nutrition and herbs and things, it's great. But what that does is it raises the water level on that big iceberg. So yeah, it's great because you get relief of the symptoms. It's helpful, but it's not melting the iceberg, because if you stop the good diet, you stop the herbs, that water level goes back down and you see the symptoms again. So you haven't really cured, you haven't really melted that iceberg. And then the problem we run into is in Western conventional medicine, they'll give an antibiotic and it like chops off part of that iceberg. So it makes it really difficult for the homeopathic veterinarian to come along and say, what is that exact remedy that matches that iceberg? It's hard now because it's been so chopped up. It still can be done, but it takes longer and it's a little more drawn out proposition.
It seems that the medicines you get, and conventional again, is that it seems that it kills things. It's supposed to kill the bacteria, kill something
Right.
like that. Well, as my thought is, it doesn't just kill the good, the bad. It takes out
Right.
some of the good too. So
Right,
instead of encouraging the good to be stronger, you're
right,
trying to go after the whole thing and just
Exactly.
you're hoping you kill more of the bad
Right.
than the good,
Right.
And it seems like
Right.
your way is to just feed the good and let the good take care of the bad.
That's exactly, that's called the gut microbiome, or that's one example. I mean, every place on the body has a microbiome, but the gut microbiome in particular, like it's potent, it's strong, but it's also a little fragile. Like you can ruin it with just one course of antibiotics. It could take years to recover from that if you don't do anything about it. Even with probiotics, it's months of probiotics and staying away from junk food and sugar and, doing a
Get
more
into
natural
probiotics.
diet. And it's, that's just from one course of antibiotics.
But yeah, there's so much of the autoimmune diseases
Mhm.
going around right now in humans, but I think we probably haven't seen really that is also going on in animals. And I see so much when I look into our customer base and into comments, how many, especially dogs, there are right now that have food sensitivities, right? And that is a really big indication of that's exactly what's happening
Right.
there as well.
It seems like when I was in vet school 30 whatever years ago, like just say, for example, Cushing's disease, it's, or thyroid disease, or like what you were just talking about, like gut problems. I think in vet school, I might have seen one Cushing's case, and now it's so common. And thyroid disease, it was, yeah, we would see it here and there. It's just multifactorial. It's grossly over vaccinated from puppyhood all the way through.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's the poor quality food that that we've fed for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Prior to that, dogs would just eat what people were eating. And that was like organic because we didn't have all the glyphosate sprayed all over the crops, all these toxicities. I've read, and I also believe that animals are about 50 times more toxic than people. And we don't have all the detoxification procedures in animals. Like in people, you can do saunas and you can do all these detoxification herbs and things. With dogs, and it's, how are you going to get a dog to take an herb every hour, and how, it's just,
Right.
It's much worse in animals than it is in people, as far as autoimmune diseases and vaccine related diseases. The symptom has to come out somewhere, whether it's an ear discharge or a nose discharge or itching, which is considered a discharge. That discharge is a result of, unfortunately, most of the time, what we call vaccinosis. It's a state of disease created by vaccines. Even if a dog has never had vaccines its entire life, it can still have vaccinosis because that state of disease created by the vaccine is passed on generation to generation.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
That iceberg just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger every single generation. So,
Interesting.
nowadays you see little puppies that are already starting to itch. They're already having digestive complaints. Just one little thing that I always think of whenever I see a little puppy or a little picture of a little puppy, and they have a black nose, and already they're getting like little gray spots on their nose or gray spots around their eyes. They're already like producing antibodies against their own pigment on their nose. Their immune system is already hyper, like reacting to the pigment in their nose. That's a dog to me that's either going to, already have allergies, or maybe just swing the other way, have a lower immune system and maybe be more susceptible, like cancer or something like that.
So for our audience that's listening on a podcast, what are some of the things that you could suggest as a remedy, even when my dog's not sick yet, knowing that these things are probably already out there and we've vaccinated all of our dogs because most of us are required to do it or thought we were required to do it. Are there certain things we can do to kind of help our dogs have better lives?
Well, as long as there are no digestive complaints, I am a proponent of raw feeding mostly. Sometimes that's not possible, just depending on the situation. I kind of tailor it to the individual if they can handle it or not, or sometimes we kind of work up to it. But that's one of those things where, like I was describing before with the iceberg, it really brings the water up. You see all kinds of things go away, like little eye discharges or ear infections, skin, smelly skin, that kind of thing. You will see that typically diminish or completely go away with a natural diet. So that's one thing. As far as a remedy goes, there isn't really one remedy. You have to look at the symptoms. So like say, for example, a puppy gets, the vaccination and they get a lump at the injection site. That really shouldn't happen. There's a remedy called silica. Sometimes we'll use for that when a lump forms. People might have heard of a remedy called thuya. Thuya is another remedy that is commonly used, but I almost don't want to say that because there's thousands of remedies, and but those are just two common ones that. And the good thing about homeopathy is if you give the wrong remedy, the worst that can happen is nothing in that situation. So that's good.
Not huge side effects.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There's
What do
really-
you, I'm sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean
Well, I was
to
gonna say,
interrupt.
there really are no side effects other than if it's a very elderly or a very fragile patient, you could stimulate them too much and they, you could make them worse technically. Gave too high of a potency to elderly dog, for example.
Now there's obviously a big hype right now for prebiotics, probiotics, and also CBD, and taken over the pet world, right? I think it started
Mhm.
with people, at least from where I stand, and now I see it really going up big. Is that something that you think is a good thing?
It's just a tool in the toolbox. Have I noticed some miraculous result with it? No. I know that it can be very helpful for seizures, any kind of inflammatory disorders, skin issues. So yeah, I mean, I have used it, but have I seen some miraculous change? Not yet.
Right,
Not yet.
right.
And then you
What
asked me.
about,
Oh, go ahead.
Probiotics, prebiotics?
Yes. I use probiotics literally on almost every patient, I think.
Okay, great.
I'd like to rotate them around, but one that I use a lot right now is called Phytospore by
Okay.
Microbiome Labs. It's a spore, obviously, phytospore. It gets through the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, so it gets down to the small intestine and large intestine. But I do rotate it with some other brands too.
Yeah, and I think that is the biggest challenge out there, at least for me as a dog owner, is you do want to do some natural herbal things for your dogs, but the market is so saturated, and sometimes you wonder, is this really a quality product? Any advice there on how to find really good quality products that are truly homeopathic? Things like probiotics or natural herbs that people read about and they're like, okay, this is great for the dog, but
I'm gonna get it off the internet, but how do I know it wasn't made with sawdust or something?
Yeah, you have to kind of look at the label, obviously, but also something called excipients. An excipient is like junk that they add to hold the capsule together, which could be silicon dioxide, magnesium, other ingredients. And it's to hold the capsule together, or like if you can't pronounce the word necessarily, like a preservative.
You probably don't want to be
You don't
eating
want
it.
it.
yeah,
in
if
there.
you're looking
I mean,
for dandelion root and it says something you can't.
yeah, it says all
yeah.
kinds of weird things at the
Right,
bottom.
right.
It's okay sometimes because it's cheaper. I might use it for a very short time, like a week or something, but you don't want to use that long term because the body says, oh, I'm so hungry for this B vitamin or this supplement. I want it in the cell, but I've got to take this junk with me. I got to take this silicon dioxide, and it gunks up the cell. It gunks up what we call the mitochondria, the little organelles in the cell called mitochondria. So it's just something,
Okay.
not something you want to do in the long term.
So
So-
take a look at the ingredients, make sure that
Yes.
it's obviously for one thing, and not everybody knows this, but they have to be listed in the most ingredient in there is first.
Yeah.
So that's always a good indicator. If I'm looking for a natural herb, then that should be the first ingredient. A lot of times,
Right.
you look at these labels and it says, water and, salt, and then,
Right.
three
Right.
down the road is maybe the thing that you thought was really, really good for
Right.
your pet or yourself. So I think
Right.
that's one thing maybe to consider.
If they don't put the milligram, they don't put the amount of whatever it is. Now, sometimes they don't, if it's a proprietary mixture, they don't put the exact milligrams on there. That's okay if I know and trust the company. No milligrams, no nothing. Echinacea, that doesn't tell you anything. That could just be like dirt from around the echinacea or something. It doesn't tell you, is it the echinacea flower? Is it the
Yeah.
echinacea leaf? Is it the echinacea root, which is the more potent, usually the more potent part? They're cheap, but you might be wasting your money.
That's a
So,
very good point, though, to look for the milliliters, the volume of it. I mean,
Right.
it's a very good
yeah,
point.
the milligrams, and you need to have the dose correct. For
Mhm.
example, when we prescribe an herb, it'll be, curcumin, which is curcumazole, for example, 400 milligrams twice a day for a little dog. How do you know that unless it says on the label? If you don't, if you're not given the dose, it might not work, not because it's not the correct herb to use, but you just don't have it in the right amount. So that's true of any kind of drug or herb, it has to be in the right dose. Versus homeopathy, we don't have that issue. In homeopathy, we have these little globules. The ones I use are very tiny, like little sesame seed size. So when we pop them in the mouth, they stick. The dog or cat usually can't spit them out, but if they do spit them out, it's totally fine because it's an energy medicine. You don't have to give like the exact amount of such and such a remedy. I just give it to the person in a little envelope. Say, let's make a little trough out of the little envelope, and then you pour some of it in their mouth, or you can even put it in the water if you have to. If you spill some, it's totally fine. It's an energy medicine, so you don't have like an exact dose of that remedy.
So when people come to you, your services are on from your website, and it's usually a phone consultation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So and then you would prescribe a course of action, maybe some changes in lifestyle or diet, but then also you would have some homeopathic medicine that you could prescribe.
Right. So initially what I do is have people gather up any medical records from as far back as possible. Sometimes those are really helpful to me, sometimes not. Sometimes if they write down 4 years ago, an ear infection in the left ear, and it was the green pus or something, that's very helpful to me because it was just in that one ear. Why is it just in that one ear? So in homeopathy, we look a lot at sightedness. Why is something just in the left ear, the left eye? And if you look at symptoms, they typically, for most people and animals, it will be on one side more than the other, usually. So that's part of the reason why I like to get the records, because a lot of times people don't remember, oh yeah, I totally forgot. That was 5 years ago when he had that, itching or whatever after the vaccine. So that is very significant. So I have the other vet, or they have the other vet email me all the records. I review all those, and then we set up the appointment. It takes about an hour or so on the phone to go through everything, every possible organ system, characteristic, behavior, how do they react how does a dog react when a stranger comes in your house? That's like really important. Does he just go up and, oh, hi, come on in, steal whatever you want? Or, is he hiding? So all those things are really important. And then I usually have to study the case after that, because it's not like Western medicine where you just know immediately necessarily the remedy. You have to like correlate all those symptoms together, come up with that one very specific remedy. I have thousands of remedies, but I have the remedy that I need, but sometimes I don't. I might have to order it. Then I send it to them. And then we do periodic follow-ups over usually a long period of time. Because usually whatever it is they've been dealing with for years. So it's like we're melting the iceberg, over a long period of time. If everybody treated homeopathically for several generations, the dog, cat, people would respond a lot faster. But we're dealing with this inherited iceberg. Like I said, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger every generation. So if everybody treated homeopathically, the iceberg would be getting smaller instead of bigger. So that's kind of what we do. It's a long-term treatment. Most of the people that come to me, I'll say, are already kind of that mindset. Maybe they've already had homeopathy for themselves. They know someone whose dog has done well, then we treat their dog. So they're somewhat familiar with it already, usually.
So we've talked a lot about medicine and herbal remedies, but of course there's other things too. And I'm thinking of things like acupuncture, which I know that you offer for animals, but as well, we interviewed a lady that does electromagnetic light therapy. So what do you think about those types of remedies?
I was a licensed veterinary and human acupuncturist for a while, but I kind of phased that out when I got into homeopathy. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing, especially for acute conditions like acute back problems, a little dachshund, or, you know, the disc problem, that type of thing. For chronic long-term issues, you know, the Chinese never used just acupuncture. That was just one of their tools. They used herbs and supplements and all kinds of energy medicines and elixirs. So, you know, if I just did acupuncture on a dog that was itching, it wasn't that effective without doing other things too. Yeah, definitely. Acupuncture, herbs, supplements, nutrition, everything.
And again, I guess that just comes back down to the beginning of our conversation where we were saying you have to really treat the whole body, and you have to treat the whole human or the whole animal based on, you know, their lifestyle. And that's why it's so important to get that whole story, because you can't just give this one thing and then expect that that's going to be a cure.
Right. One of the most common questions I get, you know, or email or phone call, I know you do homeopathy. My dog is itching. What remedy should I give? I don't know, you know, like I said in the beginning, you have to look at the whole patient, you know. Itching that's on the surface. We have to look deeper than that. You know, we have to look at the personality. Is he aggressive? Is he timid? You know, and I have people give all kinds of examples, and I ask for specific situations. You know, is there other digestive disturbances? And, you know, we just go into so much detail. And the skin, you know, everybody is so concerned it's on the outside and you want the skin to be better, but healing occurs from the inside out. So sometimes, you know, you could be on the most perfect remedy, homeopathic remedy, and they're still itching because it just hasn't reached that level yet. Maybe the energy is better, they're eating better, they have the sparkle back in their eye, but they're still itching. And then you just have to keep working with that, like layers on an onion. Maybe they need another dose, or maybe they need a different remedy.
So again, for our audience, for those who are interested in finding out more about homeopathic animal medicine, they can go to your website and tell them where to find you.
It's just Dr. Stolz, DrStolz.com. I have some articles on there. I kind of explain what homeopathy is, how it officially started. There's some examples of acute situations, different remedies, you know, like if a dog is eating garbage and he's sick, or, you know, some acute remedies, maybe for parvo, that type of thing, is on my website.
So if you have an animal that's a dog that's having a tough time, you could definitely try a different path. It might be time to try a different path and say, okay, I've tried conventional. Let's try something else.
So one thing, and I don't know if you can, I mean, now I'm like one of those people that says, well, but what is your thought on, I think one of the number one things that I hear that people can't find any help with is their dog eating poop.
Yeah. We have this discussion in homeopathic seminars all the time. And as gross and disgusting it is, it's considered somewhat normal if the dog is eating stool and that's all they're eating. As far as, you know, weird things, they're just eating stool, it's considered gross, like a dog thing, versus if there's other symptoms that go along with it, like the dog is just one of those dogs that like inhales their food, they don't even chew it, like it's gone. And they're also like getting into garbage if it's available, or like when you take them on a walk, they're looking for that wrapper of somebody's hamburger wrapper, and they're always eating socks and underwear and stuff like that. That is a whole different story when, you know, with the stool eating. But yeah, if it's just the stool and they're going after the cat box, I don't typically see that go away.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much. I think that was just an amazing interview. So much great information. And I know that there's so many of our listeners and viewers out there that are looking for, you know, great ways to increase their pets' quality of life and health. So yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today on People with Passion for Pets. We're Jim and Bee Walker. And we share the adventure of life with our dog Apollo and Heidi. For more adventure videos, check out our YouTube channel, Modern Canine Vlog, or visit our website, www.mcs.dog. And until next time, keep your paws on the road.